particular point in the tournament, the Crystrons could throw a spanner in the works.
So are you a player who picks the deck for the event, or are you a player who just jams the same deck over and over again and then takes that to every event?
I would say I'm kind of like the player in the middle. I do quite like to play the deck that I enjoy. Within reason, if I feel that the deck that I enjoy could be considered the underdog or something that's a little bit less known, I do quite like that unknown factor. I feel that it definitely gives you an edge in most matchups, but you need to be very careful to make sure that the deck you have chosen still has competitive advantages against the current reigning decks or the highly represented decks, and to kind of play around with it. And I feel that both of these decks kind of fall within those elements.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that for Crystron there. So we saw Mel open up with the Perulia, which is pretty good against most decks, I'd say. It's going to get a couple of draws. But Crystron, with the right hand, which we're seeing now, is going to have the ability to almost completely ignore the Perulia. I don't think we can ignore the Full Loss, though. You do have to summon from the deck and the extra deck a couple of times if you want to do your full Crystron combo. So we're going to see how that works now. Benjamin, oh my god, a bit of everything here. Not summoning from the extra deck already with his Horus cards, which is kind of interesting because I think it means like once you summon the Sulfador, you're locked into machines. At least I thought you were. Is that a machine?
No, I believe it could be completely
wrong. It might just be a machine, to be honest. It looks kind of machiney enough, doesn't it? I wouldn't know. Here we are.
For some reason, I want to think it's a warrior, but I could be completely wrong on that one. It is a warrior.
It is a warrior. Maybe I'm wrong on Sulfador then. I thought Sulfador, when you summoned it from the grave, would lock you into machines.
Also, you can't special from the extra deck for the rest of the time except machines.
Yeah, and it was summoned via its own effect. So I'm hoping.
Yeah, I believe that is the case. Maybe we'll see if the judges kind of catch that. I feel we're kind of moving on a bit of a late kind of movement on this one to try and protect, possibly from the Biru, like you've already played through Fluoros, Ash Blossom, and Charmy. Kind of go from there.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh my goodness, a bit of everything here. Look, there's an Ash, there's a Droll now. I'm not convinced by the Droll, to be honest. I think that might be a bit of unfamiliarity with the deck, because I would rather keep the Droll in hand and have my Molchamis do the work for me, because if the Molchami Fualos resolved, which I thought it did, I don't think it got Ash Blossomed, then that would be drawing a lot of cards.
Yeah, I do like the Horus cards inclusion in the game itself. I think it's a very, very good kind of mini archetype. I love the theme behind it. And it looks like Benjamin is going to repay the favor towards Mel by utilizing that Perulia. And we're going to be seeing a Kashtira Fenrir come from Mel on this one.
Yeah, that I was fully not expecting. I do kind of like it. It's a very powerful option going first. We see a few Fenrirs, a few Unicorns even, and a Kashtira Birth. I guess I like the idea, giving you extra link materials and pressure going first, because it means your opponent, is very discouraged from trying to use any interruptions on you, because if you can take a couple of cards from the extra deck, depending on what you're playing against, that can be very annoying. We see like Ryziel, for example, only having the one detonator, or if you're running Fiendsmiths, you can just take out the Requiem, and that's going to be a big spanner in the works.
Yeah, I do like this kind of the strategy that this engine is in the side deck, because as you've already mentioned, if you're going to be going up against something like a pure Mitsurugi, they're not really going to access their extra deck as much as something like the Ryziel. So rather than having a Unicorn for its sole purpose to be able to get that knowledge of the extra deck, to be able to take away one of the core cards as previously mentioned, you can kind of take that reliance off of the main deck of having 3 or 4 less effective cards and utilize them for the side deck. In addition to that, it looks like Mel does play Kashtira Birth plus Pleasured Pranish Rise-Off and Set Rotation. And Set Rotation will double up as an additional form of a starter, being able to work its way into Nightmare Throne. And the Kashtira itself doesn't really clash with the Fiendsmith, the Yubel strategy. So it's going to be quite interesting to see if that is a Molchami Meowis in Benjamin's hand as well, as he might want to hold that for a guaranteed draw off of the back of something maybe like a Grave Squirmer.
Yeah, I think it's quite creative from Mel, because I think a lot of players wanted to find a way to side out their Molchamis when they're going first. So I think everyone's just kind of gravitated. They'll just say, I'll just put a couple of Solemn Warnings, Solemn Judgments or whatever, job done, or maybe some Ash Blossoms if they're not in the main. But Mel's gone for this other package, which is very good going first. There's a lot of threat, and I think it's really creative, because I really haven't seen many other players doing this, so I really like it.
Yeah, I do think it's a very, very good choice on this one. Just having a quick peek at Benjamin's hand, it looks like we decided to get rid of the Synchro monster for the Crystrons, which is going to be quite damaging because that's quite a core factor for what they're trying to do to gain as much advantage. And I don't believe Benjamin is playing more than... Oh, he does play 2 copies.
He plays
of
2.
it.
Yeah, I think it's like very standard for the Crystron decks to run 2 copies, but it is like the card that you start off your plays with. So I'm wondering if the plan from Mel is just to say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'll banish 1 now, and then I'm just going to leave this on the field. And then if you can't deal with it, I'm just going to banish another one next turn.
Yeah.
And then what do you'll be cut off from your like main engine piece.
What I do also really, really like about the inclusion of the Cashier Birth, and I would expect that Mel is that level of player that they will be able to see this, but what you can do is that you can, because you control a level 10 monster with the gates, you are able to add back a continuous spell card, which is exactly what we've just seen here. So we've been able to get the Birth back to the hand after being utilized as maybe destruction or discard outlets, and then we're going to be able to set up the Birth, which can also be quite disruptive for Benjamin's Crystron strategy, because if they activate a spell card, you're then going to be able to remove 3 cards from their graveyard.
Yeah, I think all of these cards are flowing together quite well. Birth, I think, is kind of an underrated as an interruption. Often the way chains work out when you're not the turn player, your thing's going to go last on the chain. So if your opponent activates a spell, like for example, Fiends with Tract, you're going to discard your Lurry is always going to be chaining 1, and then Birth could be chainlink 2. So stuff like that can be really, really potent with Cashier Birth.
Yeah, Mel taking their time here, being able to kind of navigate into the unchained section of this deck. Utilizing Nightmare Throne, also working the way into Shavara. We can see that Benjamin does have the King's Sarcophagus in the hand. I suppose we're in a position where Benjamin's going to see how much draw advantage they can kind of gather off the back of those chummies that are currently in effect.
Yeah, I think Furlos is like the critical one against Yubel, but I think Meows in particular is probably going to be quite good, maybe stopping how much Mel can do. So let's see what they choose to end on.
Yeah, I feel that they can definitely control how much they want to give Benjamin. I feel that you can make the decision on how far into the deck you go, how many times you actually utilize the cards to revive from the graveyard. Keeping in mind that if we activate Birth, we can still bring back the Cashier Unicorn. Is that worth the ability of giving Benjamin another draw or not? I think we're about to kind of see the value on that one.
Oh, I was going to say surely it is, but Mel disagrees. I love the idea of having Unicorn, like banish a card, yeah, and then banish another one.
Yeah, I feel definitely without the Meowis in rotation, that definitely would have been the strategy there, because keeping that Unicorn on the field, exactly when you've already banished one of the Skeletus, if they were to activate a monster effect, that would definitely be met with the Unicorn look at the extra deck. But it looks like we're going to be utilizing Lightning Storm, which is actually a really, really good card against the Yubel strategy, because being able to get rid of the... Oh, decided to go for Rage and Phantom, which is quite interesting, because we're now going to be able to not only utilize Yama's effect in the graveyard to attempt to bring back a Yubel monster, but also utilize the Nightmare Throne to work its way into a level 10, and it looks like we're going to be going for Spirit, reviving the Rage. So it was as if the Lightning Storm very rarely actually happened, because you've got to be very careful that Nightmare Pain is going to force Benjamin to attack all Yubel monsters that are on the field, and then all damage that would be dealt to Mel is going to be dealt to Benjamin instead.
Yeah, I do feel like even though it doesn't look like much has happened, like the field only comes back so many times. Like you Lightning Storm it once, and then you've kind of got through a chunk of the interruptions, because some of the interruptions are in the form of link summoning with your monster. So you're right, it doesn't look like much, but I think you almost have to do it. And I'm not sure how much the spells and traps we're going to do. So it kind of makes sense to me to go after the monsters, even if it doesn't look like it achieves that much.
Oh, and here's DD Crow putting in a bit well. I saw DD Crow was in Benjamin's side deck. I do like the inclusion of DD Crow. We had this conversation yesterday comparing it with the Bestials. Obviously, both of them have their pros and their cons. This is one of the pros, I suppose, of DD Crow being able to target the Schmeiger, being able to target any of the Horus monsters before they're able to come back from the graveyard. Can kind of whittle down Benjamin's resource here. So we can kind of see the use of that card.
You know what I think would be cool is Skullmeister. Just put the hat in the ring, instead of DD Crow or any of the Bestials. And you know what, it's a level 4 Fiend, so I feel like it would do quite nicely in the Yubel deck somehow. I feel like in a pinch, you know, just summon with it.
Yeah, we have actually seen some people feature the Skullmeister in their decks for the pure fact of exactly that, being a level 4 hand trap interaction, because sometimes it would be a lot more advantageous than some of the level 3s.
And here we see Mel smoothly getting through all of Benjamin's plays here, getting rid of the King's Sarcophagus as well as the Horus Monster, and having a Veiler handy for the Tristaros.
Yeah, I think Mel's piloted this one very, very well here. Kind of making sure that you're interacting at the right times, because if you wait that one move later, or you do it one move too soon, sometimes that Tristanos might be able to get that additional extension to the field, work its way into a synchro, and I feel the position that we ultimately ended up getting into was the SP Little Knight was going to be able to get the maximum value out of using Rage to link off, then the SP Summon to banish, and still maintain on the field to deal with any form of interaction, which is exactly what we're going to see here with the Tristanos being banished by the SP Little Knight. Kingstar is still within rotation, so we're going to be able to see Mseti come back, and possibly even Happy come back from the graveyard.
Yeah, Mseti was already
Mseti's already been summoned,
yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
So just keeping it very, very simple with Happy coming back. But remember that Mel does have Spirit of Yubel in the hand. So if Benjamin does declare an attack here and go to the battle phase, the Spirit will be summoned down. The Spirit would be in attack position. And it looks like we're just going to be...
Especially when you combo that with the Horus cards they summon from the grave. Not only do they summon from the grave, but they send the Crystron cards to the grave before summoning from the hand. So Crystron cards pretty much, doesn't matter if they're in the grave or the hand, they can be summoned from either place. And here we see an absolutely premium start for Benjamin. Mel just kind of nodding and laughing because they know that that is the best start. You send the Smyger to the grave, and it kind of replaces itself. And yeah, draw a card. So you've kind of got your full combo of Crystron plus the Horus starter as well, all in one. But Mel gonna put a bit of a stop on that. I think Lancia, again, there is a bit of like collateral damage to the Crystron deck from the fact that everyone's got Lancia in their side deck. Because I don't think people would be siding Lancia specifically for Crystron, but it is very powerful against Crystron. So Mel's going to be quite happy to have it now.
Yeah, completely agreed. And as you can see, Mel has kind of bookended, exactly like you said, bookended Benjamin here on this one. So Benjamin will not be able to banish from the graveyard, and at this point, if he wants to try and revive any of the Horus cards that he's going to want to be summoning back from the graveyard to the field, he's going to be paying a very small cost of allowing Mel to draw one brand new card per summon.
I have a feeling Benjamin's going to do almost nothing. I'm looking at that. We're going to normal summon a Thisvern, use its effect, probably destroy itself, and I'm voting for Tristaros Pass here almost, because you rarely want to be using the effect. Oh, not even going to get that far, so Mel using a good 3 hand traps on this turn, and I reckon that's probably enough for Benjamin to just say, you know what, I'm just going to set my interruptions. I'm not going to play into this. I'm not going to give you all these card draws. I'm just going to pass and see what you can do with only 3 cards against me.
Yeah, I think that would be... Oh, we're going to be giving 1 up.
1 up. That seems fair enough. Okay, 1 up to make an SP.
Yeah, interesting on that one. Do you summon back Mseti and leave Mseti on the field? I know you've already given the 1 draw. Is Mseti's effect on the field probably more effective than the SP Little Knight? But even then, being able to sit on an infinite impermanence, and we saw that there's an effect Veiler in the hand, could still be quite useful.
I think the player's just having a little discussion, because a lot of the Crystron effects, they will stop you from summoning from the extra deck except machines. But sometimes when cards are negated, they don't... you know, you have to, you still have that restriction.
Yep.
So some cards you need to read them carefully to see whether either they're negated and they keep the restriction or they don't. So in this case, it looks like they don't keep the restriction, and you can freely summon a warrior from your extra deck in the form of SP.
Yeah, it seems that Benjamin has made the right decision here. To give the 1 draw, even though it's a risk and reward, it looks like the Samsara Deloya has been met with the effect Veiler. Very, very good interaction on the Samsara Deloya. So it can still tribute as cost, even though it's been negated, but it just clears the field off. And it looks like we're going to be passing straight over to Benjamin here, unless there's another Meowis. I would assume, and this is just my assumption, that to clear off the Samsara Deloya, you must have a card on the form of a Chummy somewhere. You want to clear field for a reason. You don't just want to have it clear for no other option, correct?
Well, you say that, but what's the Molchami then? It must be a Fuvalos, right? Because you would have to activate Meows in the standby phase because the Horus monsters, they just come back.
Correct.
They don't start a chain, so you can't chain anything to them.
Yeah.
But if it's just a Fuvalos, I think there can be... Oh, Draw and Lockbird, okay.
Still an effective Draw and Lockbird here. I think you are right. I think a Fluoros is probably what we're going to be looking at.
But you can't even use Fuvalos against this.
Oh yeah, because you've got the Draw and Lockbird, so very interesting. I mean, the Samurai Delos did have 0 attack, so its presence on the field wasn't doing much different. I'm pretty sure I saw a Meowth in Mel's hand. I'm pretty sure.
Is this 8,000 damage? It looks like almost 8,000 damage to me. 3,000, 2,400, 1,600, and I think it's 1,850 on the Sulfur.
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, 1,900. There's 50 in the defense, but not in the attack. But either way, over 8,000 damage, so Mel's going to have to pull something out of the bag here, but we're under 5 summons, I think. We're only at 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th summon.
Yeah, I think if we present one more summon to the field, we will be on our 4th. I agree with you. You need to be very, very careful not to go too far in. I mean, probably play it rather safer than sorry. Looks like Benja was just going into it. Not really worried about the Nibiru. Of course, the deck can play through it. I'm not too sure what card you fear. If you already have lethal on field, I suppose the only other thing to worry about is Spirit of Yubel, which is it might be why he's eyeing up that Samurai Destroyer, so that Spirit of Yubel can't summon itself down and still it will still present a very very big roadblock for Benjamin to deal with. So that's the only form of disruption I could possibly think of.
No, Spirit of Yubel is a very valid point, actually. I was kind of counting all my chickens, but Spirit of Yubel, keep that in mind. And to be honest, it can't be destroyed by battle, so it could be quite difficult to deal with.
Yeah. I do also kind of... I could be completely wrong, but if that is a Meowth in Mel's hands, unless you have a Spirit of Yubel, I feel you would... Exactly like you said, during the draw phase, you activate it. Because at the very least, what you're trying to then draw into would be a Spirit of Yubel, or you're trying to make sure that your opponent respects the Spirit of Yubel. They might not even utilize, or it looks like there's an impermanent Meowth from what I can see. But they might not even expect the secondary effect of the Spirit of Yubel. But I think the Samurai Destroyer kind of confirms that is what Benjamin might be considering, is if there is a battle phase-esque effect that could be happening here. It is the Spirit of Yubel.
Here it comes. And what does the Samurai Destroyer... I know when it's tributed, or when it's sent to the grave by opponent's card effect, it can summon something back. And I know when it attacks, your opponent can't use card effects.
Correct.
But I don't know... Oh, and it also negates the Spirit. So that's quite cool. So you can attack and negate the Spirit and destroy it. However, this will prevent the game from ending this turn, I feel like. I don't really feel like the Samurai Destroyer offers an awful lot other than that. It's actually kind of rare we're actually going to see this attacking. Samurai Destroyer lives a sad existence, I think, because it only gets summoned when your board is about to be wiped with the Nibiru, so just gets summoned immediately before being sent to the graveyard.
Exactly that. I feel that, I feel trying to have to deal with Imseti and Happy, both of them having their secondary effects, but more importantly, the Tristanos plus an SP Little Knight to what could be Mel's 1 if not 2 cards. There is the normal summon of Meowth, and Mel is just going to concede there. Well played by both Dolis on that.